3 spine-chilling true accounts of terrifying first days at work, haunting secrets revealed. Jessica grinned as she stepped through the doors of Rosie's diner, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. The flickering neon sign outside threw a warm glow that welcomed her into this vintage time capsule. It smelled of frying bacon and fresh coffee, a place where laughter echoed against the checkered tiles. Busy waitresses manifested behind the counter as she squeezed into her crisp apron and snapped it tight, unaware of the shadows lurking behind the cheerful facade. "Hey, Jessica. You ready for the best first shift ever?" Sarah, the head waitress, teased, making the other employees chuckle. The clinking of coffee cups and chatter of regulars wrapped around Jessica like a comforting blanket. She jumped right in, gracefully weaving between tables, her notepad swirling with orders of hearty pies and greasy burgers. But as the sun dipped behind the horizon, a subtle change slithered into the air. Something flickered in her peripheral vision, a darkness sliding just out of reach. She dismissed it as nerves, pushing deeper into the rhythm. Yet, murmurs drifted through the diner, a hushed talk about the girl in the corner booth. Her heart raced with each whispered name, but she stayed focused, laughing along, pouring coffee, ignoring the disquiet that began to gnaw at her. The evening progressed softly, until it didn't. Closing the kitchen, she heard them soft, echoing whispers that crawled across the room. "Help us." Goosebumps shattered her composure, but she chalked it up to the building settling, or perhaps a trick of her overactive imagination. The air turned frigid, the lights flickered, and a pit formed in her stomach as she half-heartedly reassured herself. Just when she thought she might finally find a moment's calm, a heavy door creaked open. The newcomer stepped inside, cutting through the diner's warmth like a chill wind. A tall figure in formal attire with a wide, unsettling grin sank into the corner booth. Locals stared, their faces pale, whispers stifled. He was the type you read about in unsettling stories. Each word he uttered dripped with menace. Jessica inched closer, taking his order, her skin crawling under his penetrating gaze, her nerves spiked. "What do you serve the souls of the damned?" he asked, his voice smooth yet twisted, like a knife against stone. As she turned back to the kitchen, her pulse hammered. She heard him muttering, speaking to someone unseen, and the whispers from before returned, louder and more frenzied. Panic flared, she could almost feel the presence of something lurking in the shadows. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jessica's anxiety peaked as the light flickered violently again. The diner buzzed with tension, eyes darting between the man and the corner booth, but when she turned back, he was there hunched over, whispering, and all at once, she felt it, a cold hand brushing against her. Then she saw it, a fleeting glimpse of a pale girl standing behind him, her mouth a silent scream. Jessica's heart pounded, terror clawing at her throat. "Get out," the ghostly figure seemed to whisper. As the man's grin widened, Jessica stumbled backward, trapped in an agonizing uncertainty. She realized the legends were true. The diner held secrets darker than she dared imagine. Would she become another lost soul at Rosie's? She had no idea how. The night was just beginning, and she was right in the middle of something truly sinister. Jessica fought to regain her balance, a wave of dread crashing over her as she stared at the man. The warmth of the diner felt like a distant memory, the cheerful chatter shifting into a haunting melody. The air was thick, pregnant with foreboding, and the shadows in the corners seemed to stretch closer. The man in the corner booth tilted his head, his gaze piercing through the noise, settling directly on her. "You can't ignore them," his voice slithered into her ears, chilling her to the bone. The whispers grew frantic, weaving through the fabric of the diner, tightening like a noose around her neck. Jessica turned, eyes darting to her co-workers, but they remained oblivious, laughing and taking orders, unaware of the horror unveiling before her. "Jessica!" Sarah called, breaking the spell momentarily. "You good? You look like you've seen a ghost." The irony clawed at her. I need a moment," she stammered, the restroom calling her like a beacon of sanity. She hurried to the back, hoping to breathe away the fear. Once inside, she splashed cold water on her face, staring into the mirror. "It's just a first shift. It's just nerves," she muttered, but the reflection staring back was pale and wide-eyed. The whispers echoed within the small space. Each flicker of the fluorescent lights felt like a warning, a sign that this was more than just a figment of her imagination. With a shaky breath, she stepped out of the restroom, the cryptic murmurs still lingering in her ears. As she passed the kitchen, a sudden crash rattled her. She paused, peering inside. The head chef, a normally imposing man, was backed against the wall, his face moonlit pale. "What happened?" Jess asked, voice trembling. "Something's wrong, I think. I don't know," he replied, eyes darting wildly. "The fryer turned off by itself. It shouldn't be that way. And the grill, it's like someone's messing with us." Jessica shivered. "The man in the corner booth, he knows something. Don't mention him." The chef's eyes widened in terror, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Nobody ever mentions him. The last guy who did, no one ever saw him again." Panic coursed through Jessica, her heart pounding against her ribs. She clenched her apron, keeping her composure as flashes of the ghostly girl haunted her mind. She had no one to turn to, the walls seemed to close in, secrets festering like an unhealed wound. The terror escalated when she heard the sound again, the soft, desperate cries. Help us, a collective agonized plea swelling in the background, echoing through the walls of the diner. Suddenly, the lights flickered once more, and the door swung wide open without a soul pushing it. The temperature dropped, an icy gust rushing past her, leaving her breathless. In the frame stood the pale girl from earlier, looking right at Jessica, her mouth moving in a silent scream. A loud chime from the kitchen called everyone's attention, but Jessica was frozen, catching the girl's gaze, and she felt her soul siphon a little more with each glance. Just as she turned to flee back to the counter, the figure vanished without a trace. A deafening silence fell over Rosie's diner. Everyone stared, waiting. Jessica was the only one who knew the truth, but what would it cost her to escape? Then the man in the corner booth spoke again, his voice slicing through the hush. "You're just like them, Jessica, just like her." A suffocating dread washed over her. Would she too join the legion of those trapped in Rosie's diner? The truth was unraveling, and she was trapped in the heart of darkness. What was waiting for her behind the neon glow of the diner? Could she uncover the truth before it consumed her? The cold gust faded, but Jessica's heart raced wildly as she scanned the diner, eyes darting from face to face, each unaware of the dark web surrounding them. Maybe I could just leave, she thought, but the thought of stepping outside, into the unknown, chilled her even more. Now the shadows seemed alive, grasping at her ankles, pulling her back. "Jess!" Sarah's voice cut through her panic. "Are you okay?" "I just got a little lightheaded," she stumbled, forcing a smile, but the expression slipped as her gaze returned to the man. He was still watching, an unsettling grin curling at the corners of his mouth. "I think enough stalling. Get to work." The chef snapped, his eyes shifting nervously between Jessica and the booth. Something dark fluttered in Jessica's chest, igniting her need to escape. "It doesn't make sense," she whispered to herself, fingers twitching as they gripped the counter. The diner's warmth felt suffocating, and the closer she got to the man, the heavier the air became. As time dragged on, the whispers grew louder, rippling through the diner with urgency. Help us, they twisted and pulsed around her, wrapping tighter around her mind. She kept her head down, trying to ignore the tugging dread gnawing at her resolve. That's when she felt its icy fingers prickle at her neck, sending a shiver racing down her spine. "Jessica?" Sarah's voice echoed again, hesitant now, the words came out barely above a whisper. What do you know about that guy in the corner? Sarah frowned, shaking her head. Just a regular. He comes by sometimes. Don't let him get to you. But do you know anything about him? Jessica pressed, her voice trembling. Look, just don't worry about him. You'll be fine, she replied, returning to her tasks with a flick of her wrist, but Jessica could sense the uncharacteristic weight in her tone. The door swung open once more, a sound she could now associate with a drop in the temperature. Jessica's stomach knotted. She had never seen an empty diner seem so terrifying. There was a scrape, and a glass shattered on the floor. People jumped, exhaling terrified gasps. Jessica followed their gaze and froze. The girl materialized again, eyes wide and pleading as she pointed toward the booth. Don't! Jessica cried out, only to find her voice swallowed in the cacophony of terror. The shadows shifted, tigers in a jungle of fear stalking their prey. Before she could react, the booth filled with darkness. The man's grin turned into a face that warped into a grotesque sneer, eyes gleaming as if feasting on her despair. Join us, he taunted, a whisper so vile it curled her blood. Jessica felt herself lose grip on her surroundings, the diner transforming, suffocating, each table a tomb. And then came the deafening silence again, drowning out the world, making her wonder if anyone else could hear the truth that dripped like venom from the edges of her mind. The girl's screams filled her thoughts, merging with the gut-wrenching dread that had settled in her soul. Help us, it wasn't just a plea, it was a warning, perhaps a beckoning. Jessica felt the urge to scream, to run, but her feet were rooted to the ground. With her heart pounding like a drum of war, eyes wide, she turned to the exit, the way out. But could she trust it? The man's voice echoed back, "You're just like them, just like her." And behind him came an overwhelming flood, whispers cascading like a storm, crashing through her defenses. All at once, the hairs on her neck stood up, a raw sense of impending doom closing in tighter. What would happen if she took that first step? Could she escape the grip of the diner, or was she eternally chained to its cruel fate? Jess felt her breath hitch. The walls of Rosie's diner pulsed with secrets too dark to unveil. A decision loomed before her, heavy as stone. Would she embrace the nightmare head-on, or would she remain paralyzed under its hungry gaze? As the lights flickered ominously above, revealing faces twisted with fear, a new sound sliced through the ambience, the siren call of truth growing louder. You'll never leave. What awaited her beneath the diner's neon facade? Was there anyone left to save? Jessica's heart thundered as the man's laughter ricocheted off the diner's walls, mocking and sinister. She felt the suffocating weight of the atmosphere press against her, shadows weaving around her legs like vines choking a tree. The whispers had picked up speed, a frantic chorus that began to blend with her heartbeat. Help us, they begged. The last shred of her composure snapped as she clutched the counter, her knuckles turning white. Her breathing was shallow, her mind racing for a solution, a path to safety. But what was safety anymore? In a desperate attempt to ground herself, she focused on the patrons' lost souls locked in their own relentless fight against the unimaginable. Each face reflected the shadows that clung to her, eyes wide with unspoken terror. A mother shielded her child under the table, a couple stared blankly ahead, and Sarah was there, wearing a mask of confusion mixed with fear. Jessica made eye contact with Sarah and saw the truth reflected back. "We need to get out," she mouthed, desperation dripping from her voice. But what would they face outside? A world that had turned dark, filled with things that lurked in the corners of the diner. Just as she considered bolting toward the door, the lights flickered again, briefly plunging the diner into darkness. A collective gasp filled the air. When the lights returned, the man was standing, towering over their booth, closer than before, his grin impossible, eyes glowing with an eerie light. The heavy scent of rot filled her nostrils, urging her to cover her mouth. "Did you see her?" he whispered, and for a moment, the diner fell silent. She was so beautiful. The sinister edge to his voice raised goosebumps on her skin. Something cold twisted in her gut. Jessica didn't want to look back at the girl. She could feel the haunting presence behind her. Maybe if she didn't turn, it would go away. Suddenly, the girl from before appeared again, her form flickering like static on an old television screen. "Help us!" she screamed, the sound echoing with the weight of millions of trapped souls, a raw plea that cut through Jessica's panic. "You have to get us out. You have to." The man raised a hand, cutting her off, his smile only sharpening. "You can't save anyone here. It's too late for all of them and you." Jessica felt the floor shift beneath her. Without thinking, she stepped backward, her instincts now pointing to survival. She would not become another lost soul. "Sarah, we need," she started, but Sarah didn't move. A surge of urgency pushed Jessica forward. "Come on. We have to go," she shouted, and Sarah blinked, returning to the world outside her dazed. In a swift motion, Jessica grabbed Sarah's wrist and pulled her toward the exit. As the two raced across the diner, the voices crescendoed into a manic uproar. The whispers pleaded, screamed, and cried, clutching at her sanity. The man's voice thundered behind them, "You can't escape what you are." They reached the door and flung it open. The chill of night air smacked against her face. But a shadow loomed at the threshold, a dark silhouette blocking their escape, smirking with twisted satisfaction. Jessica's heart hammered louder than ever, and she felt reality slip, fracturing like glass before a fall. "What do we do?" Sarah cried, eyes darting. "Run!" Jessica screamed, but the air around them thickened, making each step feel like moving through molasses. The darkness surged around them, swallowing their cries. Suddenly, in a flash of panic, one of the diner patrons screamed, "She's back!" The girl, her essence flickering in and out, reached for them, face twisted in terror. She was trapped, pleading silently in desperation, unable to think. Jessica took a deep breath and moved toward the darkness toward the girl. "I want to leave you," she yelled, but what awaited her was beyond comprehension, and as she stepped forward, the diner itself trembled. What was real? What would become of them? The escalation of terrified murmurs around her melted into one deafening echo as everything around faded to black. Was this the end or a twisted beginning? What lay ahead when light returned, if it ever did? Darkness enveloped Jessica and Sarah, the icy grip of fear tightening around their throats. Everything vanished: the diner, the laughter, the whispers. She felt weightless, as if suspended in time and space, a void swallowing all she knew. Where was the girl? Where was the man with the horrific smile? Thoughts raced through her mind like lightning, each one cutting deeper into her sanity. Then, abruptly, she fell. The sensation of weight returned. Gritty pavement scraped against her palms as she landed, gasping for breath. The air was different here, stale and suffocating, tinged with the scent of decay. Sarah lay next to her, staring wide-eyed into the abyss of night. What just happened?" Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling with horror. "I don't know," Jessica croaked, trying to stand. Her legs felt numb, as if they had forgotten how to support her. She pulled Sarah to her feet, heart racing. Around them was an eerie stillness, the quiet punctuated only by the faint rustle of leaves. The diner was gone, swallowed by the shadows. They stood in what looked like an empty street, dimly illuminated by high, flickering street lights. The world felt oddly distorted, like a place that wasn't quite real. "Where are we?" Sarah asked, her gaze darting, searching for something, anything familiar. "Maybe it's a trick?" Jessica suggested, her voice shaking. "We could still be inside, trapped in his nightmare." Just then, the lights above them flickered and died, plunging them into darkness again. Panic surged, filling their chests as they stumbled blindly. The silence, now oppressive, pressed in like a heavy fog, thickening around them. "What is that?" Sarah gasped, a shivering whisper escaping her lips. A sound emerged, soft at first, like a breath being drawn. Then, growing closer, footsteps shuffling, slow and deliberate. They echoed through the empty street, a reminder of the darkness that seemed all too alive. Jessica's throat tightened. "Run!" She hissed, and they bolted down the street, feet pounding against the pavement, breath coming in short gasps. The footsteps quickened behind them, a haunting rhythm matching their frantic pace. Shadows blurred past, flitting in and out of view, taunting them as they veered left, right, unsure if they were heading toward freedom or deeper into despair. They turned a corner and skidded to a stop. In front of them stood a dilapidated building, its doors ajar, eerily inviting. A sign creaked in the wind, barely legible welcome. "We can't go in there," Sarah protested, but the sound of footsteps grew closer, echoing louder. A deep sense of dread clawed at Jessica's mind. "We don't have a choice," Jessica urged, dragging Sarah toward the entrance. They stepped inside, the door swinging shut behind them with an unsettling thud. Inside, darkness consumed them. The air felt thicker, suffocating. With trembling hands, Jessica fumbled for a light switch. As her fingers brushed against the cold surface, a sudden flicker illuminated the room. Before them stood a wall covered in portraits, all different but connected. Each face wore a twisted expression, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. Jessica's heart sank as she recognized the girl from the diner among them. "What is this place?" Sarah whispered, backing away, her eyes flicking between the haunting images. "What does it mean?" Suddenly, the air changed, filled with whispers again, the same frantic pleas that had haunted them. Help us," they echoed, wrapping around Jessica like chains. "No," she breathed, horrified. No, the portraits began to shift, the faces sliding into new expressions. Desperation turned to rage, twisting into something grotesque as if they were coming alive, trapped in a cycle of never-ending anguish. "We need to leave," Sarah shouted, yanking on Jessica's arm. But the door wouldn't budge, held by an unseen force. Outside, the laughter returned, chilling and sweet, wrapping around them like a fog. "You can't escape," a voice scoffed, low and mocking, echoing through the confined space. "You're part of this now." As the walls began to close in, shadows flickering around them, Jessica felt a surge of icy fear. A realization gripped her: this was no ordinary nightmare but a twisted web woven from the souls lost in the darkness. They had to get out, not just for themselves, but for all those trapped here. But how? As the walls trembled, the portraits bore down on her, eyes pleading. "Your choice will seal your fate," the voice taunted, and the only escape lay before them. What awaited them in the depths of that darkness? Would they become lost among the tortured faces, or could they find a way back to the world they once knew? The whispers grew louder, crashing against Jessica's ears like waves battering ashore. Help us," echoed everywhere, the tormented cries seeming to seep from the very walls around them. Panic surged within her as the weight of endless sorrow pressed against her chest, suffocating her resolve. "Jessica!" Sarah screamed, pulling her friend closer as shadows danced menacingly around them. The portraits began to shift more violently, their features distorting with agony and fury. The faces seemed to twist, morphing from despairing souls to eerie smiles, mocking their predicament. Jessica felt her grip on sanity slipping as the madness unfolded before her. "Get away from me!" Jessica shouted at the portraits, the defenseless rage boiling inside her. When she turned, she felt an electrifying jolt as the twisted faces contorted and converged, the air crackling around them. "I can't breathe!" Sarah gasped, clutching her throat, her eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out." Jessica turned back to the door, a desperate plea in her heart. "Please just open," she begged, slamming her palms against the wooden surface. The air grew colder, a draft whispering warnings, as the laughter twisted and swirled around them. "You won't leave this place, ever," the mocking voice echoed again. An idea sparked in Jessica's mind, a gamble, but one she had to try. "Sarah, we need to face the portraits, confront them. They might know how we can escape." "Are you insane?" Sarah hissed, but the fear in her eyes mirrored Jessica's determination. "We have no choice. Jessica pulled Sarah closer, stepping toward the wall filled with tortured faces, their gazes piercing through the veil of darkness. As they stood before the portraits, an overwhelming dread settled in. "We acknowledge you," Jessica yelled, forcing her voice to be steady. "We can't leave you here. We will help you." The expressions on the faces shifted in unison, becoming a collective gasp. A strange stillness washed over the room. The atmosphere thickened like molasses, suffocating and thick. "Are you daring to offer mercy?" The haunting voice taunted, dripping with scorn. "Don't listen," Sarah screeched, but Jessica felt something, an urge, a pull binding her to those lost souls. Fear morphed into something profound, a deep-seated empathy that cut her heart. "We've felt your pain. We can help you find peace." Suddenly, the portraits began to vibrate, dark tendrils of energy curling down toward Jessica and Sarah, almost inviting them to step deeper into the shadows. "No! Stay back!" Sarah yelled, stepping back, but Jessica was entranced. "We can't abandon them," she cried, her voice cracking. One face broke away from the wall, drifting closer, a girl with hollow, sunken eyes. "You must be prepared to pay the price," she urged, her voice barely a whisper. "If you choose to save us." As the girl spoke, another face emerged, a man with the same horrific smile from the diner, twisting grotesquely. "You will write your story upon our canvas," he sneered, the weight of the choice smothering Jessica's spirit. The room shook as the shadows twisted and writhed like angry serpents. The whispers transformed into a cacophony of screams, filling Jessica's head. "You can end this," the voices cried, layers of despair suffocating her. "What if we don't choose?" Sarah exclaimed, fear etched into every line of her face. "Then you will be bound here," the portraits chanted in unison, eyes wide, pleading yet menacing. "Choose now." Jessica's heart raced, her mind a storm. "What happens if we do?" she shouted, desperation mingling with fear. "Your souls will join us, a part of this eternal mirror," the girl responded, still drifting closer. "You'll be the next to cry for help." The walls trembled, shadows lurked, and tension hung thick in the air. Time seemed to fold upon itself as Jessica and Sarah stared at the faces, feeling the weight of their decision crushing them. The question remained. Would they save those tortured souls or doom themselves forever? The door rattled violently behind them, their uncertainty turning into urgency. "We have to decide," Jessica yelled, catching Sarah's frantic eyes. In that moment, as the darkness conspired around them, a flash of light erupted from the portraits. "Make your choice or be forever lost," echoed the sinister laughter, reverberating through the thick air, drowning the light in shadows once more. Jessica stood frozen, heart pounding against her ribcage. The air around her crackled, thick with tension, as time stretched and warped. The portraits writhed, their expressions a maddening blend of hope and despair. They seemed to inch closer, their frames trembling with anticipation. "Jessica, we can't do this," Sarah shouted, her voice a raw edge of panic. Sarah's fingers clutched at Jessica's arm, nails digging in. "Think about it. What if they're lying? What if they're not?" Jessica shot back, fear lacing her words. "What if we're their last chance?" She tugged her friend forward, drawn by a force she couldn't comprehend. Each passing heartbeat felt like an eternity. The girl with hollow eyes smiled, a ghostly beauty that twisted Jessica's resolve. "Unlock our chains, and we can show you the way." Her voice was a siren's call, soft yet eerily sharp. A sudden whoosh of air rushed past them, sending cold shivers down their spines. The shadows flared, and the laughter morphed into a deafening roar that filled the room, drowning out all rational thought. Jessica staggered as if struck, the pressure of unseen hands gripping her throat. "Please. Don't," Sarah begged, her eyes wide, tears forming. But Jessica felt an undeniable urge, like a magnet drawing her closer. She thought of all the tales she had heard at midnight, those whispered myths of lost souls seeking peace. This was her chance to be a hero, to make a difference. The dark tendrils crept closer, now wrapping around Jessica's ankles, tugging her. No. You must decide. The choir of voices melded into a single cacophony, demanding, pleading, threatening. Sarah screamed as one of the tortured faces lunged forward. It was a man, mouth twisted into a silent scream, eyes full of horror. If you choose us, you will become us. He howled, desperation etched on his features. Fate is a heavy burden, the girl warned, her eyes piercing through Jessica. But your sacrifice may free us. Say something. Do something. Sarah cried, her voice trembling. The walls shook violently, creaking ominously, as if the house itself obeyed the dark chorus. Heavy paintings rattled against each other, shards of broken glass from shattered frames glinted in the dim light. They were trapped. Specters clawed at the situation, tightening their grip. Jessica's head spun with despair, weighing the stakes. If they chose to help, their lives could unravel, their existence exchanged for the freedom of these damned souls. But to walk away meant imprisonment in this wretched place, forever haunted by specters of their choice. Jessica. Sarah's voice broke through, desperate and shaky. We have to stick together. Whatever you decide, let us face it together. But could she? Alone, the decision clawed at her, a palpable torment. The faces loomed closer, shadows licking at their feet, eager and waiting. Choose. The walls screamed, and as Jessica and Sarah exchanged fearful glances, something deep within Jessica snapped. She shook her head, trying to distance herself from the torment that threatened to collapse her mind. No. No more. Jessica yelled. We refuse. With those words, a shockwave erupted from the portraits. The air thickened, warping around them like a molten river. Dark energy surged, twisting around Jessica and Sarah. No! Shrieked the chorus of voices, their screams boiling into a flood of rage. The shadows erupted violently, a howling storm that swallowed the room. Sarah clung to Jessica, and in that moment, they felt the room shift. Something was happening. A dark fissure opened within the portraits, drenching them both in a freezing wind that howled with sorrow and rage. Run! We have to go! Jessica shouted, dragging Sarah back. But the ground trembled beneath them, and the portraits convulsed, shadows lunging outward. Your choice has consequences. The man's face wailed, eyes wild. As the darkness thrashed against them, Jessica caught sight of one last horrific detail, a reflection of her own terrified face in the eyes of the last haunted spirit. And then, light splintered through the chaos, piercing the fabric of the nightmare. Help us! The remaining faces wailed, voices rising in agony, echoing through the tightening shadows. Jessica's breath froze. Was the light an escape or a deeper trap? Choose and face the consequences, Jessica, or be lost. In a breathless second, everything shimmered, and a silence gripped the air. Go! Shouted Sarah, shattering the tension that held them, but as she ran toward the flickering light, another thought struck her. Would they find salvation, or would they chase the dark essence home? The shadows shrieked one final time, reverberating through the empty halls, and the choice fell heavy in the air. Jessica. Sarah's scream pierced the tumult as they bolted toward the ethereal glow. But with each step, the light flickered dangerously. Caught between two worlds, did they dare to find out? Then, the ground beneath them shifted again. Don't look back! Jessica shouted, racing against the onslaught. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something awaited them beyond that light, something darker. Would they emerge free, or would they become part of the story written upon the cursed canvas? Each heartbeat grew louder, drowning everything in a panic that threatened to engulf them. The final moment approached. Would they seize it, or would the shadows reclaim them? Jessica dove toward the light, pulling Sarah along as the shadows clawed at their heels. The howling grew fiercer, a chorus of torment chasing them. Her heart raced, pounding loudly enough she feared it might rip free from her chest. Faster! She urged, panic slipping through her words. The light flickered again, a dying ember at the core of their escape. Each ominous pull sent waves of ice racing up Jessica's spine. She could feel the darkness reaching, tendrils wrapping around her legs, trying to drag her back into the nightmares they had only just begun to comprehend. Sarah stumbled, skidding on the wooden floor mixed with shattered glass. "Jessica, wait!" Sarah gasped, looking back, and her face blanched white as the twisted spirit screeched in anguish. "No! We can't stop!" Jessica shouted, the urgency twisting like a knife in her gut. The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. As they bolted toward the light, a scream pierced the chaos, a voice hauntingly familiar. "Help me!" It was the voice of another trapped soul, rising through the din like a knife through flesh. Jessica faltered, glancing back at the fray. I can't leave them." Jessica's heart twisted painfully. They were just like her, victims of the same dark fate. "Are you crazy? We have to go!" Sarah shouted, panic lacing her tone. The shadows surged, hungry for their despair. "I can't just ignore them. What if we can help?" Jessica's voice trembled, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. The light pulsed steadily behind them, as if it recognized their indecision, swaying like a beacon. "Listen to me," Sarah pleaded, desperation breaking her voice. "We help ourselves first, then we can think about them. We might not make it if you hesitate." Torn between compassion and self-preservation, Jessica fought against the shadows that prowled, hungry for fears they could taste. Yet beneath the chaos, a whisper threaded through her mind, a soft echo from the spirits that didn't make it out, a warning buried deep. Choose wisely, or you will be lost." "Jessica!" Sarah pulled her arm, urgency snapping her back from the edge of a decision that could damn them both. In that split second, Jessica took a deep breath, feeling the terror curling like smoke within her heart. "We have to save them," she breathed, voice barely a whisper. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. "No, please." But Jessica was already moving, dragged by an impulse she couldn't shake. She reached back, extending her hand toward the tortured faces stretched within their frames. The spirits seemed to reach for her, their eyes pleading, desperate, full of agony. "Leave them!" Sarah screamed, grasping at Jessica, but it was too late. A bright beam shot from Jessica's palms, illuminating the air thick with anguish. The colors of their pain writhed, swirling around her as she pulled against the shadows that threatened both worlds. With each heartbeat, the light grew brighter, pushing back the darkness, but for every inch it gained, the shadows retaliated with a vengeance. The earth beneath them trembled, as if the house itself protested against their interference. "Grab my hand!" one of the spirits yelled, its voice breaking through the cacophony. A thin hand stretched across the widening chasm, reaching for Jessica as if time stood still. "Jessica!" Sarah screeched, terror flooding her voice. "We can't trust them." The tether pulled tighter, tensing between freedom and doom, and a new, visceral dread added weight to Jessica's choice. Could she risk everything on the hope of salvation? In that moment, Jessie felt a fierce pull, like a dark gravity pressing down, challenging her resolve. Could she let go of her humanity to embrace the unknown, or would this be their undoing? Driven by desperation and courage, she made her choice. "Hold on, we're coming!" she shouted, her voice tearing through the dark, but as Sarah lunged to grasp Jessica's arm, a gap opened. The shadows lunged forward, filling the space Jess intended to bridge, roaring with rage. "Run! We will take you!" the spirit cried, its voice a blend of hope and dread. As Jessica felt the world around her collapse, a thought tore through her mind, burning with clarity: would the cost be too high? And then, as they flew toward the light, the reflection of the last spirit caught Jessica's eye one final time, its hollow look screaming of a truth buried deep. darkness feeds on hope. The last flicker of light died, leaving them suspended in suffocating darkness. Run! Sarah screamed again, but Jessica now faced the weight of consequences. Had they truly escaped, or had they merely exchanged their fate? And behind them, the shadows danced in twisted delight, waiting for their next chance to strike. Sarah's scream shattered the stillness, spiraling into the void where light had once flickered. The suffocating darkness wrapped around them, an oppressive blanket heavy with dread. Jessica reached for Sarah, but the darkness throbbed with the mournful echoes of lost souls, twisting her resolve like a knife. "Stay close," Jessica whispered, panic threading through her voice. Her heart thundered in her chest as she felt the shadows coil tighter around her ankles, cold and merciless. The tangible fear clawed at her, urging her to run deeper into the void. "What do we do now?" Sarah's voice wavered, desperation lacing her trembling words. I don't know," Jessica stammered. She could barely breathe. The darkness seemed alive, pulsing like a predator, awaiting its prey. "We have to find another way out. There's always a way out." A sudden chill ran down her spine, a touch too cold for the thin air that surrounded them. It was like icy fingers whispering doubts. Then, she heard it, a soft sob. The sound was distant yet unnervingly close, echoing deep within the shadowy expanse. It snaked around her, binding her to the spot, drawing her towards the source. "Jessica, don't." Sarah tugged at her arm, fear flashing in her eyes. "We can't trust anything here. It's all a trap." But desperation clawed at Jessica. What if another victim was trapped just like her? What if they could save someone? Ignoring Sarah's pleas, she began to creep forward, each step heavier than the last, the shadows hissing around her. "Help me." The voice called again, softer now, pleading. It was a relentless echo, luring her deeper into the abyss, sweet and sinister. Suddenly, an image flickered in her mind, a child, once bright and vibrant, now lost. Her heart ached. "I can't just leave them," she cried, realizing she recognized the voice. It was the same child she had once encountered, the one whose face haunted her dreams, begging for rescue. "No!" Sarah shouted, pulling Jessica back with fierce strength. "You can't. You don't know what you're doing. Let go, Sarah." Jessica wrestled against her grasp. The shadows hissed louder, trembling in anticipation, as if they could sense the ripple of impending calamity. Against the backdrop of despair, she could feel the weight of a horrible choice coiling around her resolve. The darkness offered no solace, it thrived on her doubt, her hesitation. When Jessica finally wriggled free of Sarah's grip, she hurtled forward, heart racing. "I have to know, I have to try." The child's cries intensified, growing desperate, mingling with the cacophony of jarring whispers promising despair and chaos. At the heart of the darkness, she finally saw it. A flickering figure, twisted and thin, an agonizing smile stretched across its face. The closer Jessica got, the more grotesque it appeared. The child she once tried to save was now swallowed by darkness. Pale and thin, it stretched out a bony hand, twitching and trembling, begging for release. "Please. Help me," it whispered, but the echo distorted, laughter bubbling through its words, mocking Jessica's resolve. The realization slammed into her hope in this nightmare was but a fleeting mirage. Every soul trapped here added another layer to the darkness. It was never going to let them go. "No!" she screamed, horrified, stumbling back. The shadows surged, drawing closer, ready to feast on her terror. "Jessica, come back. We have to go." Sarah's voice pierced through the thrumming dark, breaking through the haze of despair, but Jessica was too far gone, lost in the emptiness that surrounded her. She turned, staring into the void where light used to dwell. Suddenly, a blinding flash flared, the night tearing apart, and she felt the shadows pull her closer, their wicked laughter echoing as a storm surged in. The ground shook under her feet. More shadows erupted from the dark. Tormented laughter rose like smoke. They were coming for her. Jessica! Sarah screamed again. The urgency clawed at her heart. Just as she turned back, the child's face melted into a sea of distorted visions, and she was left with the weight of a terrible truth. Darkness feeds not just on hope, but on vulnerability and fear. Then, in the next instant, the very ground split beneath her, threatening to consume her. Run! Sarah screamed, her voice breaking through the chaos, but could she? Would the shadows let them escape again? In that split second of uncertainty, the ominous chant of those trapped began to echo through the walls, "Join us, join us." Jessica stumbled, her eyes wide with fear, unsure of where to go, what to believe. Would she accept the light or succumb to the dark merging around her? And as despair threatened to swallow them whole, a piercing shriek erupted, rattling the very core of their being. Choose or die. Was there still a chance to escape, or had they already sealed their fate? The shadows danced eagerly, waiting for the next heartbeat to end. The darkness slithered around Jessica and Sarah, its cold grip tightening as the shadows danced eagerly, ready to devour their hope. They sprinted through the void, wild fear snatching at their insides. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest, every frantic breath echoed the whispers of lost souls around her. They needed a plan. Now. Think, Jess. She urged herself, voice wavering. You've faced worse, you can do this. But every flicker of uncertainty hummed through her body, making her tremble. They were caught in a nightmare, and the way out seemed to dissolve with every step. Then, from out of the suffocating stillness, a familiar sound crept into her awareness, the chilling echoes of those they sought to save mingled with sinister laughter. It curled around them, suffocating and potent. Sarah, struggling to keep up, gasped. Are we actually stuck? Her voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability they both felt. Not if I can help it. Jessica snapped, determination flooding her veins. They faced betrayal and nightmares, but not like this. She gripped Sarah's arm, pulling her closer. We have to find that light again. We can't give in. As the laughter amplified, Jessica's resolve solidified. The urgency in Sarah's eyes echoed in her own heartbeats. They would not surrender, not yet. With each thundering pulse, a flicker of hope ignited deep within Jessica. That light is our way out. I know it. They pressed onward, the shadows writhing hungrily, their whispers weaving into a cacophony screeching for despair. Help us. Join us. The voices melded together, chilling as they moaned through the darkness. Shut up. Jessica shouted, rage surging. We're leaving. The shadows recoiled, momentarily silenced by her defiance. For the first time, she felt their power wane. This wasn't just a fight against the unknown, it was a battle for herself, for her spirit. Suddenly, in the suffocating blackness, a pinpoint of light appeared. Jessica's heart soared, a beacon of hope flickering to life amidst despair. Sarah, look! She tugged her friend toward the glow, adrenaline propelling them forward. We're coming! Sarah shouted, her fear melting into determination. They sprinted toward that inviting glow, the shadows clawing at their heels, frantic to reclaim their prey. The light pulsed in response to their urgency, its warmth enveloping them, whispering promises of freedom. It felt almost sentient, as though it yearned to welcome them, to guide them back. But suddenly, from the heart of the shadowed void, the man from the diner emerged, his face a twisted mask of fury. You think you can escape? He jeered, his voice slithering through the air. Jessica halted, heart racing. We will escape. The weight of her conviction tightened her chest, fueling her fight. You don't own us. The man sneered, darkness curling around him. They're waiting for you. You'll be just like them soon enough. No. Jessica spat, anger bubbling to the surface. I want to let fear define me. I refuse to be trapped. I refuse to be you. His eyes burned with malevolence, an expression of pure rage. But as he stepped closer, he faltered, confusion flashing across his face. The darkness around him thinned, his grip on the shadows weakened. "Come on, Jess," Sarah urged. "It's not real." The moment of opportunity stretched before them like a taut wire. Jessica surged forward, adrenaline surging through her veins. She could feel the burdens of each lost soul, the weight of their despair, but with every step toward the light, she shed those fears like a snake shedding its skin. "Hold on," she screamed to Sarah. Together, they leapt toward the light, fingers brushing against its warm glow. In an instant, the world erupted into brightness. They stumbled into a new reality, the oppressive air of the shadows vanishing. The brightness enveloped them, filling their lungs with clarity and purpose. A city street stretched out, alive with vibrant colors. Cars rushed past, laughter floated through the air, it was life, pure and unfiltered. But most importantly, they were free. "We did it!" Sarah gaped, tears of relief brimming in her eyes. Jessica turned back, the shadows fading behind them, the man's anguished screams echoing away. "We're not just free for ourselves," she said, a fire igniting in her chest. "We're free to help them." Sarah nodded, determination overtaking her disbelief. Together. And with that vow, they knew their battle wasn't over. They had escaped the confines of darkness, but the whispers of lost souls still lingered. They would fight for those caught in shadows, sharing their tale and bringing the light to others. As they moved forward into the world anew, Jessica felt hope surge within her, an unyielding commitment to ensure no one else would be lost in the darkness. They had faced the dark, and now, they would always move toward the light. If you're ready to take this journey with us, don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out. Hit that smashing like button now to fuel the algorithm and let us know you're here. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and wild theories about Jessica and Sarah's escape. And don't hesitate, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this heart-pounding conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for the stories that dig deep into your soul.